You sin when you do your sin, it's because you want to do that. There's something about it you want to do or you wouldn't do it. So when we say we're slaves to sin, there's something about it we want to do. So you are serving because you desire something in that realm, in that way, as far as you want something. The same thing when we choose to serve him. We want something in that direction, right?
Right. Okay, so when they were talking about imputing righteousness, of Yeshua's righteousness on it, I've been thinking about that. I have a coworker that has been deconstructing Christianity, but has not tapped into Torah. And a thought that I've had for a while is about how Yeshua had promised that he was going to write the Torah on our mind and our heart. And so that's what I had kind of an epiphany that that's kind of what it is. We are in the process of his Torah being written on our mind and heart. Would that be imputing his righteousness upon us, a different perspective?
No, because the idea is that we're now going to start behaving much more in line with him, which is letting his mind be in us, etc. Doesn't change the stain. The imputed righteousness really is to get the stain out. And the stain doesn't do anything negative to us till we get to level 10, level 9, right? Okay? So it's a different thing. By the way, it's really funny how I love when I hear where Christians are either A, deconstructing Christianity, or B, they're having an issue with the church, but their issue is that the church isn't being the church right. They don't have an issue with it being the church and the things they're teaching. They just have an issue with some ways that they're going about it, but yet they're still as Christian can be. So they're not really deconstructing. They're just having a problem with the way it's been implemented, but still they want to implement Christianity. They don't want to implement Torah, Observant, Messianic, whatever. So so they're really not necessarily heading in this direction, okay? Because I listen to people in the Messianic who want to defend all of these different churches that are out there and just say, well, they're just doing it badly. No, they're doing it wrong, not badly. Okay? Badly means that there's a right way to do that. There isn't a right way to do Sunday, Christmas, Easter, eat pork. The law has been done. There's no right way to do that. All right? And so that's what they're trying to spin, is they're deconstructing, or they're trying to, fix things in the church. No, fix things in the church by getting out of the church. Okay, stop being the church, start being the body. Okay? Stop being the church, start being covenanted Israel. I mean, this is how you fix the problem. The church was never designed to be this, okay? Man came in and imposed a whole system of things, especially to be not Jewish, okay? That's how the church got started. This is how we're gonna decide that we believe in Messiah and we're not them. That really was the foundation of it, okay? Just read the early church fathers, okay? Go ahead.
So would that be, though, the process, though, of how we can put on righteousness? Because we're not...
No, we absolutely put on righteousness by doing what you're saying, but it's not imputed to us. We are imitating him.
Right.
Okay? We are being discipled by, which is the idea of looking like and behaving like and responding to things like your mentor or your discipler. Okay? So people start to see him in you. Okay?
So then one more aspect that I've thought that could transition into that is we will obtain the mind of Yeshua. We will receive the crown of life. And then, of course, since I work in educational settings, they talk a lot about, Jack and Jill. Jack fell down, he broke his crown. So then I looked up how we have a level of a crown, and that's the kippah that covers that kind. So would that mean, I think we are in the process now of putting the Torah on our mind and our hearts, but then when we not arrive, but during that time when we became new, that new mind that of Yeshua, it's not that we're receiving a physical crown.
Right.
Is that the right thought process I have?
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And look, the thing of the matter is that you might want to go back and listen to Endure and Receive the Crown of Life, which kind of links the crown thing in a lot of ways straight to what Scripture's talking about. But the bottom line is we are called to grow into, change into, evolve into. Oh, don't use that word. Well, it is, He wants us to evolve. I'm not saying that evolution is right. I'm just saying he wants us to evolve into the next thing, which the next thing for us would be Yeshua-like, okay? That's you growing into another thing. But you're still you, evolving into a thing, a new version of you, that being that new man or that new woman, the new creation, that's still you, but yet is still him, okay? In terms of, look, I was gonna say this earlier, I'm glad I just remembered it. So you do sign language. And let's say you're a teacher of sign language, and let's say you have a certain flair when you do certain signs. And I'm your student, and I start doing the same extra little flair when I do certain signs. So somebody that knows you would recognize you're my teacher if they saw me, because they're like, oh, Janelle taught you. You got that from watching her. You see what I'm saying? So that's the same thing when you start acting Yeshua-like. You start saying, oh, you're acting in a way that's Yeshua-like, okay? That's not the way you, Janelle, normally act, okay? They're starting to see that in you, okay? All right? And so, I mean, some people have that challenge now with elder counsels, and a lot of times he sounds like me, and they're like, oh, well, but that's because he's learning and being influenced by, by whatever choice he wants and what level he wants to be influenced by me as his example that he's seeing, right? And so that's one of those things that's there. If I was training in any kind of a skill, whether it be electrical, plumbing, art, music, something, whoever was my teacher, I would pick up stylistically, approach-wise, some sort of thing technique-wise that's somewhat unique to them. That someone seeing me do it, if they knew my teacher, would be like, oh, I know who your teacher is. Because they're the ones who use that tool or do it this way or do this thing, that, whatever. There's just something that's gonna be unique to them that you pick up, all right? And so that's kind of what we're looking for, is that people see him when they see us. Because there are things about us that really aren't normal to being us, that we've now evolved in, and his mind is now, right, let this mind be in you, that now because we have the mind, then we have thoughts that lead to actions, right, habits, etc. So people see that in the three-dimensional world when it starts off by letting his thought process, his mindset come into us, amen? Olivia, we're coming back to you. Genesis chapter 4.
No, we're in 7. We just skipped a couple.
Which means we'll be done on Tuesday, not Friday. Okay, so.
That's so awesome. Actually, I get so triggered by everybody's questions. And like what you just said about the writing on the heart, it actually made me think of Moshe after he had broken the commandments and
right.
how he had to carve the commandments again.
Yep.
Yah didn't do it for him. So it's like, that's what we're doing. Is that right? It's like we're carving it ourselves.
Yep.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, Genesis 7:16. When Noah gets everybody in the ark and Yah closes the door. So this reminds me, I was triggered when you tell us about do all you can do. And when it's not something you can do, he'll do the rest. Is this a good reflection of that? He
Sure.
basically did everything he asked him to do, but he could not close the door. Is that a good reflection?
Sure.
Bam.
Sure.
Fantastic. I was like, yes, that's like what Rabbi says. Okay, where are we going now? Look, we skipped. Genesis 18. Oh, look at us, we're going faster.
Wait, hold down. I'm a little dizzy. We just sweep through a whole bunch. I mean, wow. No. Let me just hold on for a second. All right, Genesis 18.
Shoot, okay. Genesis 18:24. When Abraham and the messengers are having the conversation, or
About Sodom.
yes,
Right.
about Sodom. Okay, I was thinking about what you did previously when we were talking about blue people, and you had balled up a piece of paper, and you threw it in the middle of the floor, and you said, "Don't touch it," to all the blue people. I was actually wondering, because he was testing him, correct? At this moment, he was testing what you would say, correct?
Look, in almost every situation where somebody was going to have a significant role, okay, like that had a lot of authority and power and responsibility, we have examples of conversations that were actually tests of the person, We see this with Abraham, we see it with Moses, we see it with others throughout, okay? Where there are these, we see it with Joseph, we see it with Jacob, we see this with various people, where there are conversations that seem a little odd, but they're really tests that have nothing to, see, it looks like Abraham, and if you read some of the Jewish sages, the sages would say things like, well, Abraham, got God to change his mind. Abraham was such a righteous guy, even God had changed his mind. No. Moses was so righteous, he got God to change his mind. No.
Right.
Okay? But the better argument is, if you notice at the end of it, it basically says, and when Yah was finished, he ended the conversation. Okay?
So that situation reminded me of what you did with the trash, and it was making me think about how do we figure out what we're responsible for? I thought it was interesting that he included him in the conversation. And when you did that trash thing, I was wondering, how do we figure out who's responsible for the trash? I was like, is it the person that's closest? Does that give us the range of responsibility to take care of the trash? If it's right outside your house, if it's right in front of your chair, should you be taking care of it? And I guess that when he kept asking him, he kept testing him. And he kept saying, well, if there was, 50 righteous people, and then he just kept, it's like he was taking responsibility for the lack there. He was trying to give them a fighting chance. And I was just wondering, how do we figure out what we are responsible for?
Well, some of it takes coaching and mentoring, where you think maybe this is mine, but it might not be. You might want to go with that. By the way, the whole thing with the crumpling up the paper comes from a movie called The Dream Team with Michael Keaton. And the character, if you know the guy who plays, Christopher Lloyd plays Doc Brown in Back to the Future. He was in the movie, and he was the one that had a problem allowing to leave a dirty paper on the floor, right? So in group therapy, the therapist takes it, throws it on the floor. He goes to get up, he says, no, let's just leave it there. And then next week, we'll start practicing leaving other papers around that are not your problem, okay? But, so that's scene. Again, it's amazing how sometimes a movie, I don't remember much of the movie, but I remember that scene, okay? And so, if you don't really know where the boundaries are of what's yours and what's not yours, it probably helps to find somebody who, is an outside observer to say, was this something I really need to be involved in? Is this something I could have or should have left alone that's really not mine, okay? Because it's tough to kind of recognize sometimes what really should or shouldn't involve you. I used to use the phrase, where something happens, you say, what?
That's
interesting.
Yeah, that's
there you go, something to remember. Okay, and then the next sentence you say is, I wonder if I should be involved in that or not, as opposed to just responding, thinking that it automatically needs your attention or involvement. Okay, because probably a great amount of time that you make the choice to get involved, you probably shouldn't.
Well, I think you talked about it on some of the zone meetings. It touched on a lot of that and how.
Okay.
What you take responsibility.
There's a lot of stuff that Abba's working with, and other things are happening with the other person that really doesn't need your involvement. And so you're not helping by trying to help.
So you should counsel.
It's not, at least until you then say, oh, now I know in the future, these types of situations I handle this way. So then you don't need to keep going back again for those same things. But this is where you can kind of get clarity. And by the way, it doesn't mean that you just go when you don't know what to do. You might want to go just to say, hey, I need a barometer, I need a measuring stick. Hey, this is something that came up, and I was wondering if it's something, I thought it was something I should get involved in. Was I right? And the person might say, yeah, absolutely, that is something you should get involved in. Or they might say, you know what, that's something you should probably just leave. And then you'll now know for next time.
So in the concept of the trash, is it the one who's the closest to the trash that's responsible for it?
No. The trash is a whole different sort of problem. Now you got to remember, in this particular case, the therapist throws it on the floor, okay? And there's no guidance or instruction as to what the expectation is. Something is happening in a group setting.
Right.
Maybe there's a lesson happening. Maybe there's something else happening. So everybody should be sitting waiting to know what to do with this. It wasn't like the person just was walking around, had the garbage, and just dropped it and kept walking, okay? That's where you might just say, you know what, I'm a good citizen, I'll just pick it up and throw it out, okay? As opposed to, this clearly was done on purpose, and it was that person's decision, the choice to see what to be done with it next. You see the difference?
Yes.
Okay? Because I've seen lots of people, the bizarre thing is, they're standing a foot from the garbage.
Yes.
Right, you're out in public, right? The person, there's a pail right there, and they just drop their coffee cup on the floor, or whatever it is on the floor. I'm like, the pail, you could take one step and there's the pail,
Yes.
all right? And you may decide, you know what? I'd like you to decide I'm a good citizen. They've already walked away. I don't want to create a fight with them. I'll just pick it up and throw it out. Or I'd rather that than you saying, well, that's not right. Somebody needs to clean this up, and I'm just going to. No, do it just because you want to be the good citizen. If you do it. If you don't do it, don't do it. It's not your problem. You didn't create the problem. That person made a mess. Now, you don't need to go over and grab them and say, hey, unless you feel like getting hit in the face or something, because that could happen, all right? Because nobody wants you to point out that they dropped their garbage and was rude or anything else, because all they're going to do is get defensive, okay? But, you know, look at the situation from the movie. The situation from the movie is they're sitting in a circle. The therapist throws this on the floor. In front of them, they're watching him crumple it up and throw it, knowing full well the one guy was about to get it, he was going to immediately get up to go get it. And he said, no, I put it there. It's my problem.
Man.
If I wanted you to pick it up, I'd ask you to. Type of thing, you know what I'm saying? I don't remember the whole conversation in that scene, but it has that idea. So remember, you're watching somebody doing something, they haven't asked for your involvement.
Right.
Okay? I'm assuming in situations where they haven't asked for your involvement.
Right.
Okay?
You're just
Then you don't need to jump and insert yourself into the situation just because you're aware of it.
That's good.
Awareness is not obligation. Okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Now, awareness of something in yourself might be obligation, but awareness of something outside of yourself does not obligate you to do anything with it, all right? Because it's awareness outside of yourself. Did that help?
That's really good, Rabbi. Thank you. Yes,
Okay.
that was really good. Okay, sticking with Abraham. Okay, I'm linking Abraham and Hasatan in my brain, and I am asking myself, what's the difference between a tool and a servant?
A tool like an instrument?
Yes, because Hasatan has a very much a tool.
Because growing up in the 80s, we had a different understanding of what a tool was. You know, some geeky guy with a pocket protector and, you know, the whole
the
thing.
pockets.
Right. Okay.
Well, what's the difference?
Who messed
Because
with
it almost blurs
The
in my
curves and
head.
everything.
The concept of a tool versus a servant, because even a servant can be bitter and can be just more of a tool for you because they're getting paid or whatever, they're working off their debt. What makes one different?
Attitude.
You can have a bad attitude when you're a servant.
Then are you a good servant?
No.
Okay, so, you know, you have the story, right, of the father says to the one son, he says to both, go do what I said to do. And the one says, absolutely, Dad, and doesn't do it.
Right.
And the other one says, no, bad attitude, but did it anyway. Okay, so that's still better,
Right.
but yet it would be better if he said yes and went and did it.
Right.
Okay?
I guess it's the comparison. I keep thinking of Hasatan being a tool for Yah, and I don't know. I almost feel like he's serving him.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. And I know we always call like Abraham, and we call them servants. We call them, so it's
Okay, but there's a difference between making use of, okay? I think the father makes use of
okay.
Hasatan, okay? In other words, he says, you know what? And I said this, I think, earlier about some other thing. There are things that happen, and I don't know if it maybe was in with his own meetings or here, but I said there are things that happen, and Abba will look at it and go, I can use that,
Yes.
okay? It may not be the best way or that I would have preferred it to be, but it is what it is. I'm allowing freedom and free will and all this other stuff. You know what? I can use that. And so we have Hasatan. He's like, you know what? I can use that. That could be a useful tool, okay? As opposed to a servant, which is, you know, under that authority specifically. I don't know that we would say that, you know, Hasatan is sent to do everything by the Father. That would be, I think, a very wrong way of describing it. So with that being said, so I think he serves a purpose.
Right.
but not necessarily on purpose or willingly or knowing that he's serving that purpose.
Okay.
Did you see the difference? Okay, did that help?
So even though he's under his structure.
Causing and allowing, right? So he's allowing, remember we talked about him being restricted, constrained, and limited in what he can do.
Okay.
That doesn't mean he's told what to do. Hey, go bother him and go bother him. Now, we see that with Job, where he basically says, hey, what do you think of Job?
Right.
No, he didn't send him to go bother Job. Okay?
But
then it went back and forth. He says, fine, go take away everything and I'll prove my point. It was all there so we could see that play out.
So ideally, though, the servant has the better attitude. The servant is seeking the master's will,
All right.
his way.
It's you're a slave to whom you serve,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Which seems to point out that there's choice. So on some level, like I've talked about the things you do when I've called you all sickos, you sicko, is that you sin when you do your sin is because you want to do that. There's something about it you want to do or you wouldn't do it, okay? So when we say we're slaves to sin, there's something about it we want to do, all right? So you are serving because you desire something in that realm, in that way, as far as you want something. The same thing when we choose to serve him, we want something in that direction, right?
Right.
As opposed to him being, looking at you saying, well, you're not doing what I want you to do necessarily, but I can make use of that.
Right.
So he's choosing to make use of you even though you're not thinking you're serving him.
I mean, I'm grateful when he does that.
Okay?
Yes.
But he can make use of.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
All right.
No, that's good. Okay.
And I do remember now that came out of one of the zone meetings. So if you
Yes.
weren't at the zone meeting,
Yes.
you missed it.
Yes.
Okay, we're talking about Judah and Tamar and
Yes.
that whole thing. Okay.
Yes. Okay, we're in Genesis 32. Look at us rolling up.
All right, then I got to go to Janet over here because,
Definitely.
you know,
Genesis 32:9.
yeah.
I do good to you. When he says that, does this mean that he will be obedient? It appears like he's talking to Yah, and he says, I do good to you. Does that mean he's going to be obedient?
Okay, wait. We're not reading, I don't think, this right.
Okay.
Who's going to be good to who?
Well, I thought he was saying it to Yah. I thought that was the context.
Yaakov says, O Elohim of my father Abraham and Elohim of my father Yitzhak, Yahweh who said to me, return to your land and to your relatives and I do good to you. Yahweh speaking.
Oh, Yahweh said it. Oh, look at, see? That's good. Well, that erases the question then.
Okay, good. All right.
That's great.
Check. All right. Now we go over to Janet. Look, I'm telling you guys, don't pick on Olivia for missing that. We miss a lot of stuff because this is meant to be taught. You're meant to miss certain things just so that you would need someone to teach it, to share it, to point out, oh, by the way, just read it. It says it right there, but sometimes we've missed, how many of you recognize at least that you've missed an awful lot of stuff even though you read it? Okay? He gives us that, he says, I've given them strong delusion, I've given them a certain level of blindness so that they would not see everything because that way they would need an Ephesians 4 type teacher type thing, right?
Rabbi, I was going to John 15. I think it was your previous teaching, verse 5, and it says, I am the vine, you are the branch. He who stays in me and I in him, he bears much fruit. Because without me, you are able to do naught. Okay, so clarifying first, the fruit is the works, is the fruit of the Spirit, is the fruit of repentance. What is the fruit? Is it all of it?
What's the context here? He starts off, I'm the true vine, my father's a gardener. Every branch in me that bears no fruit. So what fruit? The fruit that's expected of a thing that's a branch in him. So if I have a vine that's for grapes, I expect grapes, okay? So if you're a vine in me, you're gonna produce Yeshua-like fruit. So yes, we could say like the fruit in Galatians 5, the fruit of the Spirit. We could say all the other things that come out of being Yeshua-like or that kind of thing. But you should bear Yeshua-like fruit, okay? Things that are in line with what Yeshua would be doing. Fruit is action, okay? You're gonna do things and manifest things in terms of your behavior, your character, your decisions, all that stuff. That's fruit, all right? Now, take that context to the end of the sentence, which is probably where else you're going, which is because without me, you're able to do nothing. Well, no, it's not that you're able to do nothing. You're able to do nothing in terms of bearing fruit. So it's not nothing. All of you have been doing stuff your whole lives. A lot of it, not very good fruit. So it's not like without him, you can't do anything, but you can't bear that fruit without him. The fruit, so it'd be like saying, I'm a vine, I want to produce grapes, but I'm not attached to a grapevine. So how can I produce grapes? Okay? So he said, you want to produce Yeshua things, then you have to be a vine in me. So without me, you can't produce this stuff. How can you produce this stuff? Well, what is he? He's life, he's the Torah, he's the truth, etc. Well, you can't produce the fruit of all that if you don't know and are not in him what those things are. Okay? So some of the fruit of being in him is Sabbath keeping, okay? Not murdering, not committing adultery, not doing idolatry, not coveting people's stuff, not stealing, all these things. Keeping feasts, eating right. All these things are fruit. Well, without him, you wouldn't know to do any of that stuff. As a matter of fact, most of you without him didn't do any of that stuff. You've been there. I'm not saying you broke all of those things. Maybe you didn't steal, commit adultery, murder, and all that. The things even the world wouldn't do. Generally, right? But there's a lot of stuff that you didn't know. And so without him, you didn't bear any fruit. That's all he's saying. Was that the rest of your question?
That was my question.
I figured.
You're so good. Okay, I have one more,
Sure.
if you don't mind. It's just something that...
He asked 10, and you're going to apologize for asking a second one.
It's not really a question, but maybe you can expand on that. And when Ashley was here, I missed some of it, but I think you guys were talking about, how to rule over emotions and emotional reaction versus responding, right, with logic and in the way that we want, right? I like to listen to a lot of different teachers out there, not teachers for Torah, just teachers of self-development. And so I was struggling with something that I had to do that was uncomfortable to do, but I had to do it. It's part of the project that I'm working on. So I was putting some stuff off. So then I listened to Mel Robbins, right? And so she had this really short video on procrastination. And she basically said, okay, so if you're dragging your feet to do something, commit to just do it for 5 minutes. Why? Why 5 minutes? Because most people, like 80% will continue after 5 minutes. Because once you get it going, you just keep, and that's exactly what happened, right, to me. And I got a lot done that day. And so when you were talking to Ashley about, you were giving that example of slowing down, right? Like, think of what you're going to say, like people say, take 3 seconds, 3 breaths, whatever, and then start to respond. Is that another way to say kind of what she was talking about, like making it small enough, like if you can endure a little bit, like 3 seconds, you can probably come up with something a little bit more than what you want. Like he was saying, do 5 minutes and then you will get something more than what you really want, which is more like 25, 30 minutes. You see what I'm saying? Like just doing a little bit, like trying to contain and stop your response, even if it's for 3 seconds. And that will already give you a lot more, like closer to what you want.
All right, well, look, I mean, in finally getting yourself to move, we would call that overcoming inertia, right? An object in motion wants to stay in motion, but an object not in motion doesn't want to go anywhere, okay? Getting it moving is the hard part. And that's the effort that's being made there, is to try to at least get you to move a little bit. Sad but true, for example, Tony Robbins had a program back in the 80s called Personal Power. I highly recommend it. It's interesting though, because if you listen to it today, you'll hear him say things like, pause the tape or flip the tape over to side 2, which people listening go, what's a tape? Okay, but because the recordings are now digital, but they originally were audio tapes, and I had those tapes. But I do remember laughing and realizing the truth of either on the first tape, it might have even been the first one, but it definitely was either the first one or the second one. He says things like, he started off the tape with, congratulations, you've now gotten further than 90% of the people that bought this program. Like they spent the money and didn't get to the second tape. I think he may have even said it on the first one. People buy it, put it on a shelf, never even get to the first tape. Okay? So how many of you have bought a bunch of stuff and never used it? Or used it once or twice and then went into the closet or whatever, okay? People do all that kind of stuff all the time, okay? So yes, maybe doing something for 3 seconds can help, but then what's gonna get you to do it the next 3 seconds? You have to develop discipline, okay? Discipline is the strength internally to do what needs to get done whether you want to or not. Now when I say want to or not, I mean, ultimately, you're doing something because at some point you wanted to do it. In other words, you want the result that requires you to do it. But I'm saying in that moment, you don't want to do it. Okay? You made a commitment to go to the gym, say 3 times a week, and you were going to go on let's say you were going to go Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. All right? So Sunday you go, Tuesday, I don't really feel like it. Discipline makes you go anyway. Okay? Motivation doesn't get you anywhere. Discipline does. Motivation is why you picked the thing to be disciplined at. I want this that's going to get me this result. That's the motivator, right? I want to fix this problem. I want to fix this aspect of myself. I want to develop something that I don't have that will make my life better in some way, whatever it is. But then the discipline is an internal strength. And I don't want to insult you guys. I've said this before. We all suffer from being weak, okay? You're weak. Anything that you struggle to have discipline with is a weakness. It's an area that you know you need to do something, you want to do something, you're motivated, but you don't do it. That's a weakness in terms of mental or willpower, whatever you want to call it. It's an intellect problem, not an emotion problem, okay? Because if you're only going to do it when you emotionally feel like it, that's not going to get you there. Okay? But if you're gonna just do it, go listen to a guy like David Goggins talk about when he decided he was gonna run, and he started running in, I forget where he lived, up in the north or Midwest or someplace where it was snow and freezing when he decided, and every day he went out there, and it didn't matter the weather, he was gonna run. And why did he do it? Not because he liked running, because he wanted to force himself to do something he didn't really want to do. But he wanted to overcome that, okay? And plus he was overweight and other things, so he thought this would be a way to help all that. At the time, he's in great shape now. But he decided, I'm going to win the battle of my mind. And I'm gonna go do something. I mean, I could say, well, I'll wait till the spring. No, he started in the winter. We're talking like the winter, like Chicago winter. Okay, I forget where he was, but something like that, okay? And so Indiana, Illinois, somewhere. It was Indiana? That's why I thought it was one of those, okay? And what part of your life is suffering because you don't have the willpower to do what needs to get done when you don't feel like it, okay? Okay? And that also means not doing. In other words, I got home last night and it was, in time for the zone 3 meeting, and I did that at 10, finished it at 11:45. And you know what? I was hungry. I didn't eat anything bad. I just really didn't need to be eating at midnight. But I did. I failed in willpower. Willpower would have said, you know what? I know you're hungry, so go to bed. When you wake up, you'll eat, okay? You don't need to be eating. And I actually ate stuff that wasn't bad. But the thing is, I didn't need to be doing that. It's not part of the program I'm trying to have on where I'm not eating at night and whatever. That's just my thing. I'm not telling you what you need to do. But I realized I lacked willpower last night. I wanted to eat, okay? I didn't want to maintain my discipline. If I had more discipline, I wouldn't have eaten, okay? Which is why if you listen to the Level Up program, I talked to you about the driver behind what you want to accomplish. How bad do you want it? What price are you willing to pay? What's it going to cost you if you don't do it? What are the benefits if you do? I mean, all of these things in setting your goals and your targets, okay? Go watch the program. And so what do I need to do now, recognizing what happened last night? I need to go back and address what is weak in my driver that didn't have me wanting it bad enough in order to then overcome my desire just to eat last night. Not that eating was so bad, but it didn't help my sleep any necessarily. It didn't help other things, having to digest and everything right when you go into bed. Okay, that's not a good way to get a good night's sleep, is to eat and then go to bed. It works for lions. Okay? They'll eat a big meal and just lay down. Doesn't work for you, okay? Because your body's doing too much work trying to process all that stuff. And so I'm just saying is, look at that for yourself, okay? You need discipline, all right? You need discipline. The discipline comes from an underlying stronger desire than the immediate desire. Did you follow that? A stronger underlying desire. And I talked about this, and we might have to do a separate little thing about this the other night. I talked about who owns you. Does your emotion own you? Because last night my emotion owned me. My emotion wanted me to eat more than I really underlying. I didn't want to eat. I'm trying to lose some more weight, trying to stay in shape, want to get better rest, all these other things. I should not have had that food. I didn't need it. I had dinner. I was fine. Okay? But I was up, and of course, then the brain goes, well, you're up and you haven't eaten, and so you're hungry, and so, whatever. I could have just, had a glass of water and been done with it. But instead, I ate. So now I must address how badly do I want, which is why I would have not eaten. What is that doing for me, and how bad do I want it? Why did I give in? Because I wanted now more than I wanted the bigger goal. I remember going to a seminar one time and it said the number one reason why you don't have what you want in life is because you're too busy getting what you want now. Okay? Immediate gratification is ruining your long-term goals. Financially, health-wise, relationships, whatever it is, you're too in the now to think further down the road. That was profound. I never forgot it. Probably 50 years ago I heard that. Well, let's see. No, that would make me 12. So probably I was 18 or 20, okay? So 45 years ago, whatever, all right? I mean, it was a long time ago, but I remember that. They said the number one reason you don't have what you want in life is because you're too busy getting right now what you want right now. Okay? That's why you're in so much debt. That's what credit cards do. They let you get what you want right now and not have to wait for it. But then you pay a heavy price for that. Okay? My sleep wasn't perfect because, I ate right before I went to bed. Now, I was tired enough that I slept okay, but you understand what I'm saying? You pay a price when you try to get now what you don't need to have now. And this is an important thing that we understand that. Otherwise, you are a slave. You are serving that emotional driver that's making you, so to speak, do. It's not Hasatan, it's you. It's your craving, your desires that are wrecking things for you. And you're a slave to them. Goggins wanted to win that battle and say, you know what? I'm going to do what I hate. And he makes it very clear. He does not like running. You would think he loves running because that's all he does is running all the time. He's always doing videos from running. He says, I got to tell you, I do not like running. I've never heard him say anything different. I mean, it's not like I heard him say it once. I've heard him say it 1,000 times. But he does it to discipline his mind and body to do something he committed to do and always remind him, I'm in charge, not the emotion. Okay? So I'm going to do things on a regular basis you really don't want to do that you know you need to do that are good for you, but to win that battle. One of the success things that I remember reading about is every day when you start your day, go through the list of things that need to get done. Do the ones you want to do least first. Get those victories. Okay? The things that you're going to put off to the end of the day and not get done because you really don't want to do it first. Start training yourself to do those things that you don't want to do and do them first. Okay? Look, I trained myself a habit that I think is really good for some of you, is that anytime anybody asks me to do something, or can I help with this, can I help with that, I just always said yes. Even though I didn't necessarily know what I was going to do to get it done. I didn't let the I don't know get in the way. I wanted to challenge myself to figure it out. Can you help me with this? Sure. I'll figure something out, okay? Because I wanted to be that person that said yes. Well, but I don't really know what to do. Then don't use that as an excuse as to why you can't say yes. Say yes and figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, go find somebody else that knows and you get the answer and bring that answer back or whatever. But, just figure out whatever you need to do to grow. We can't be Yeshua-like if we're going to have all these things and cravings and desires always derailing us from having the discipline to do what's pleasing in his sight, which is I try to bring this all the way back around to where it needs to go, okay?
Back to me, round 5.
When last
Actually-
we picked up with Olivia, we were in Genesis chapter 38.
It's like commercial break. Actually, I loved what you said, Rabbi.
I feel like this is the next episode of Batman or something. Same Bat channel. That's right, there you go. Yeah, but did you have the Batman record that you cut off the back of your cereal box?
No.
Who had that?
The paper one, I've heard of that.
Okay?
That's awesome.
And it played too. It was a 45 and it played. You cut it out of the back of the cereal box. Okay?
That's awesome.
I had a Bobby Darin one that was off the box of the cereal. There's a bunch. I had the Archie's, Sugar, off the back of the cereal box, right?
And when you killed it,
Kids are like, what are you
throw it
talking
away.
about?
Yes.
Look, we used to get prizes in the cereal box. You want to get in trouble with mom? Tear open that box, digging out the prize and spilling the cereal everywhere.
Yes.
No, we didn't dump it out. Not really on purpose. We jammed our hand in it. There's a good way to spoil the food.
Overfilled this.
Digging in to try to get the little stupid prize. That wouldn't work anyway. All right, go ahead.
Oh, that was good. What you said in leveling up is every decision cost. So what you were talking about with you last night, just everything we do costs. So you know that when you made that decision.
Well, let me clarify that. Everything has an opportunity cost, okay? Because if I decide to do something, I decided not to do something else,
Right.
okay? So there's no decision without a cost, because every decision to do is also a decision not to do. If I choose to stay up, I'm choosing not to go to sleep. If I choose to go to sleep, I'm choosing not to do something if I had stayed up. If I choose to eat, then I'm choosing not to keep the discipline of the diet or whatever. If I choose not to eat, then I'm giving up on the pleasure of the eating. We always make choices that have a cost, okay? Every choice has a cost. Your choice to be here may cost you something with family and friends because they don't understand why you're here,
Right.
okay? Every choice has an opportunity cost. This is what I learned in economics. So one thing I remembered, see, if you can get one thing out of something, it was worth it. I keep telling you, I got this one thing from here and I got this one thing from there. Don't worry about getting a ton out of anything. If you can get one thing. Out of all the economics, I learned opportunity cost. In Queens College, Echo 101, that was the big thing I remember out of it. Okay? And they were talking about guns versus butter. In other words, you're either going to invest in, the country's going to invest in the military or they're going to invest in their agriculture, that kind of thing, right? In commodities. But you can't spend the money on both things. Okay? And so in life, everything, and I talked about it in the Level Up class, of course.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's just really good. Okay. Wrestling and striving with Yah. Genesis 32:24.
Wait a minute, you were in 38. How'd you go backwards?
I messed up my order.
I was paying attention. All right, okay, so Jacob wrestling at the end of chapter 32.
Is this just another way for us to think of us working out our salvation? Are we supposed to be wrestling with him? I guess is my question. Because it made it almost look like it was purposeful.
Okay, I think the picture here is not that you're wrestling with him, you're wrestling with what he wants. You're wrestling with obedience to him. You're wrestling and struggling with submitting to him. You're wrestling with the relationship. You're not actually wrestling or fighting him.
So like his expectations, like what he wants, that's what we're wrestling with?
Right, you're wrestling with you submitting to him.
Okay, and that is working out our salvation. Fantastic. Love that. Okay, Genesis 35:10. Being given a new name. This happens several times.
Well, once you're here at least 15 years, I give everybody a new name. I just made that
There's
up.
probably.
There are congregations where like everybody's walking around where they pick their own new Hebrew name and stuff. Like, you know what, stop that. They also have all decided
a
what
thing.
tribe they're from.
I have heard.
I'm from Zebulon. I'm from Issachar. I was like, where'd you get? Oh, I had a dream. Okay, good for you.
Well, I thought it was interesting that he gives it to people who are making a big change. And it reminded me of what he keeps later on for us about burying the old man. And I was wondering if that was a reflection of that. The concept of you are no longer who you used to be.
No, no, and no.
Okay.
Okay? I'm not
Tell
going to
me
get
right.
into each one of them, but
Okay.
the new name, okay, expressed something about their new role.
Right.
Okay, so it wasn't just a big change, which is why I said no, no, and no.
Okay.
So it's not just somebody going through a big change gets a new name. The new name had a utilitarian sort of there was a utility to it because it's now expressing you're not just Yaakov anymore, but you're now Yisrael. Okay,
It's like an impact.
so this is right. Okay, so names, especially the scriptural ones, are even when you get a name like Yitzhak. Yitzhak was laughter. Okay, so it's for the idea of because I laughed about the idea of having a baby at an old age. All right. So when there's a name changed, and I'm not going to get into each one and what the difference is, but when you go from Avram to Avraham, okay, it changes in the meaning and represents differently. Okay. So you see these things, same thing with Sarai to Sarah. Okay.
Right.
So there's these changes are impactful in describing the newness of what you have going on here. So it's not just a big deal that's happening and so we get a new name. It happens very rarely. Happens, reasonably often, I guess, in the very few people in the beginning, but it doesn't happen much after that, okay, or before that. I mean, it's just this thing that just starts happening with Abraham, and then it kind of, 2 or 3 times, and then we don't see it happening again.
So it reminds me so much of like burying the old man and becoming more like him. But I see what you're saying, like the impact.
Look, if you get
they
that
were
out of it,
making.
that's great, but I don't think that's what.
Okay, no, that's great. Tell me no.
Well, no, I mean, look, if you got that out of it, and it helps motivate you, and it helps you with the idea of like, hey, the old me is buried, the new me comes up with this new name. I just don't need you to have a new name to do that.
Right.
Because
Well,
you see very few people. I mean, how many people do you see get their names changed? 4 or 5 people at the most?
think it's
This just
almost-
doesn't happen that much.
I guess I'm relating to like what because their names always meant something. So it's like how we identify with who we were before. And you had talked about this with a lot of people in the zone. Like people relate to you as this type of person and they're seeing you now and you're like, they don't relate to you at all. Like, who were you? What did you do with?
Right, but you got to understand
you were not
that people
person.
were given names from a different perspective back then with the meaning and everything else. Now we name people because we like the sound of it. It's a cute name. It's whatever it is. Some people may look them up and see what the meaning of the name is. Sometimes most of the time they don't bother with all that.
Right.
They're just like, well, I've always liked the name so-and-so and that's the name you want to use. Okay, and so you decide to name your kid that and that's your name your kid has. Or you end up being like really the obnoxious parents out there that give your kid a name that nobody's ever heard of before and can't spell. Or you give them a name that everybody's heard of before and spell it so bizarrely that still nobody can spell it. It's like, why would you do that to your kid?
I've seen that so many times.
Okay? Because I thought it was really cool. I'm going to take a really normal name and spell it in a way nobody would ever come up with.
Yes.
And that's going to mess with everybody that ever meets them from now on. It's dumb. Okay?
Okay. Now I actually got through my Genesis questions. Thank you for letting me check off my list.
Good.
Yay! Now, next page. I mean, do you want me to continue? Is the question.
I do have 12 minutes.
Bam. Okay, one question.
And nobody waiting. So go
Bam.
ahead.
Okay. If anybody wants to go up, okay. Okay, you were talking about
They're
focus.
finding the Rabbi Olivia show very entertaining.
Thank you, Mishpaka. You were talking about our focus. You've talked about it several times, actually. And
I've been relentlessly talking about it for the last couple of years.
oh, yes. And you were talking about yesterday about, I hope I don't cry. I don't want to cry. You were talking about not accepting people where they are and like the measuring stick you're using and all that stuff. And I was relating this to myself.
Right.
Not accepting me completely and having a very
I actually mentioned you as part of all of
Yes,
that.
you did. You were so nice. I appreciate you. You make me cry more than once, Rabbi.
You were in a good list. You, Mateo, a bunch of
It was beautiful. It was so beautiful. It was very encouraging. And I just realized I have this measuring stick. I was talking with Marlene, and I've talked with Sarah Beth, and I remember last week Sarah Beth had said, how do we make like the thoughts in our head louder? And that's when you said it was the way we focus on it.
I got to try to get most of you to get the thoughts in your head quieter.
Because they're so loud. So I was wondering.
Some of them are so loud we hear them.
That's very possible. You were talking about triggers and stuff, and I realized when you had said what we focus on, and like believing the lies, and I realized I have shame that I'm dealing with this. And I realized I can't keep expecting myself to be who I was before. And it reminds me of the walk so much because there's so much Christianity interweaved within my thinking. And having this become dysfunctional and not the way it used to be. I still have parts of my brain that are saying I am who I was. And I am trying desperately hard to change that and focus, like you said. How important is it to grieve what you were trying to change, that focus, that mindset? If you're trying to shift something, I know you said like we can like move our peripheral vision, open up the blinders or whatever, but is there a step like grieving in that? Because I feel like I haven't given myself permission to go there. And if I don't grieve who I was, I won't accept who I am.
All right. Well, man, there's like 5 things I'd like to say. Okay. All right. So first of all, grieving is very important, but we're not going to go there first. You're not grieving because you're still dealing with shame. Okay, so what's the shame thing? Shame is a painful, self-conscious emotion centered on a negative self-evaluation, making one feel flawed, unworthy, and exposed, often leading to feelings of disgrace, inadequacy, or a desire to hide. Okay? Differing from guilt, which focuses on a specific action, but focusing on self as bad. Now, there is nothing wrong with being ashamed of something that you actually did caused. You understand what I'm saying? Like you actually are to blame. All right? Problem is, most of you come to me with shame issues for things that were outside of your control, like you being in that chair. Okay? Because something happened to you that caused all that. You did nothing to cause that. Now, that being said, you have to fix the shame problem first. And the shame problem is fixed easily enough by recognizing you did nothing to cause this. So shame is the wrong emotional response. Now, grief may be a response that's appropriate because you are grieving that you're not functioning like you used to. By the way, I don't want you to stop thinking that that life is completely gone. Who knows what kind of recovery you still might have. It's just gone right now.
Right.
Okay, and you can grieve that you can't function like you used to at the moment.
Right.
So grieving is vital, but you can't get there if you're still feeling shame, because after all, then why would you grieve something that's your fault and you're taking the blame and you're all picking on you and you're a bad person and you're embarrassed and you're hiding and ashamed that you, why would you do all that? You can't grieve at that point, because grieving would mean that you're just feeling the sorrow and pain of this when you're so far right now. Instead, you feel guilty and you feel to blame and you feel I'm a bad person. You feel embarrassed that people are going to see you in this condition. We don't see you in a way that you should be embarrassed. We see you and we appreciate you. We also feel empathy and sympathy for your being in that condition, okay? And the struggle, because you know what? We have a different feeling, and this is appropriate, okay, for people that are born into a situation than someone who is struggling with, this is not how they used to be. Because we know they're struggling with it different. Because I've talked to, well, I shouldn't say I've talked to necessarily, but I've heard enough motivational, uplifting teachings from people who are quadriplegic, this plegic, or that plegic, whatever, and they were like, I've always been this way.
Right.
So this for me is normal,
Right.
okay? Where for you, this is not you. You've not always been stuck in that chair,
Right.
okay? This is a recent thing.
Right.
So we have a different, okay, I'm not saying we don't have empathy and sympathy for the others, but we have a different one for you. Okay, different because you were not born this way.
Right.
So we understand you struggle with this differently. Okay?
It's how do you switch I've been reading books and I've been talking things out, and I realize there's I need some steps because I'm still holding myself accountable to who I used to be. And I'm like,
Okay, again, we have to live in reality. So part of the reality is first you have to deal with, I am not to blame for this. Yes, you made some decisions that maybe were contributory, but they were things you could not have known, certainly didn't expect, okay? And so that having happened, you have to release yourself from that. Let go of all that blame, guilt, shame, everything else that's connected with it. Release it first. Then you can do what's called the grieving process, okay? Which is the grieving loss we have. We can do that with a loss of a person, loss of a lifestyle, loss of functionality of certain things that you can't do anymore. There's things to grieve.
right.
And there's a process emotionally that we go through called the grieving process, okay? And you can just Google that, and it's like 10 steps that, not necessarily in order, that we tend to go through in the grieving process. One of them, by the way, is where the shame's coming from, called blame. Okay, that is one of the steps actually in the grieving process, where we start feeling guilty and blame ourselves for that person not being around or that thing that we no longer can do or whatever it is, okay? And you have to allow yourself to go through the process. It's very healthy. What's not healthy is getting stuck in one of the steps for a long time. Okay, you need to make sure that you are going through the steps, not like, in 5 days, but, if you're spending 7 or 8 months in one step, you're probably stuck. And that's where you need to get a counselor to help you get out or unstuck.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, I haven't actually grieved. I realized I hadn't actually grieved. And I've been going to doctors expecting this just to go away, even though I've been challenging myself. And I put myself, I give myself challenges every day. Watching you is giving me motivation to never do what I can do. Don't give yourself an excuse. Do everything you can do.
Right.
And I guess I'm just thinking, I need to just accept myself where I'm at. Stop holding myself to who I used to be.
Stop expecting yourself to be able to do what you used to do. But here's the thing, though. Grieving, give me a second here. Grieving isn't always necessary. Accepting, if you can accept your new current condition, doesn't mean you have to grieve the old, okay? When I was really sick, a couple of back years, whatever it was, and I might not have been, my lungs had shut down, I might not have been able to move around all that much, that might have been my condition from then on, okay? If my lungs hadn't gotten healed up and everything. I accepted that. I didn't grieve what I couldn't do anymore. I just embraced doing what I could under the new condition. I'm not saying that's easy to do, but I'm just saying is if you can accept this is you now, you don't need to grieve, okay? What you need to is live in this new condition. Thrive the best you can with the optimism that it could get better, which is what I did. I was hopeful that it would get better. I wasn't all that concerned about it. I was gonna make it work one way or the other, the best I could make it work, period, right? And I didn't give it a whole lot of emotional stuff. I didn't think about how it happened. I didn't think if I could, I didn't get all wrapped in the woulda, coulda, shoulda, how, whatever, right? I just was like, this is where I am. Okay, I need oxygen on my nose to breathe. I might need an oxygen mask sometimes to breathe. I can barely move. I couldn't go up and down a staircase. I couldn't walk at all. I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
My voice sounded like this. It sounded like a whisper. I couldn't really talk. But I wasn't upset, okay? And the only reason is because I simply accepted that I now needed to learn how to be whatever this is.
Right.
And this is something Paul says, I guess, in a way, when he says, I've learned that whatever condition I'm in, to be at peace.
Or content.
Okay? Okay, so don't focus on needing to grieve. It may be something that you might need to do. But don't decide what you need to do. If you need to do it, you'll just let yourself go
Just
through
let
it.
myself
What you need to do is accept this new condition as your current condition, not your permanent one, but your current one. And if it's permanent, then that's okay too. You'll figure that out. Just like I decided when I was not able to really move around or anything, I accepted that if that was going to be permanent, that was okay too. It wasn't what I wanted, but I was going to figure it out and do the best I can in that new condition. But accepting is the important part, okay? And stop feeling guilt, shame, and all this other blame for what the condition you're in, okay?
I didn't know if the grieving would help me accept. I didn't know if it would be like, the scripture you always tell about weep, mourn, and, kind of move on.
There is a potentially, because one of the steps of the grieving is blame and getting through that and accepting, a lot of times somebody dies, okay? You have somebody that you're in love with, and you're a family member, whatever, and they have a heart attack or something. Whatever happens, they have cancer, and you miss them, and you grieve, and you think, oh, could we have done anything? Could we, any of that stuff had happened? What could I have done? Is there? And you know what? There's no answers for that.
Okay.
Okay. My mother-in-law had a massive stroke. She was laying on a couch. Everybody thought she was just asleep. Nobody really thought to check on her. Every one of them started thinking, well, if you had just checked on her, if you had just done, no, she had a massive life ending, even though she didn't die, but everything basically shut down. I mean, she was basically brain dead and coma and whatever after that, because she had this massive hemorrhage that nothing that they would have done would have changed that.
Right.
And nothing about how fast they could have gotten her to the hospital would have changed. So the doctors told them all that, and you have to accept that there's nothing that you could have done at this point to do anything. That part is where you have to get to that place where you can accept. The grieving process may be a part of that.
Okay.
But I don't think you can grieving process till you let go of the shame.
Well, I thought that would give me that link to the shame.
It might.
I wasn't sure if it would link me to that because I really want to be able to
Well, then make that
release
like step one of the whole thing. But go look at the grieving process.
That's great.
And see what you can do with
Bam.
that.
Thank
and
you,
if you need
Rabbi.
to, talk to Janet. She could help you through with some of those things, okay?
Yeah. Thank you, Rabbi. This is so good. Thank you. Shabbat
welcome.
shalom.